With people turning back to normal or traditional media
Yes.
over the last few weeks and
Yes.
months, can you help us with some guidance on how we can consume media wisely?
Yeah, I feel like an emotional and mental dietitian. There's a couple of base level premises, I suppose, I would lay out for those who are with us tonight. And I guess it comes back to your own level of resilience. Now, if you use myself as an example, I'm someone who has to consume news for my job.
Yeah.
So pre-corona, I would start in the morning with the TV on, watching not morning TV, because I don't watch commercial network morning TV. It simply doesn't deliver me. It's not bad or good.
Yeah.
It doesn't deliver me the news and the coverage and the standard of news coverage that I need for my job. So
Yes.
I will typically watch Sky because it is hands down the best live rolling coverage of news and politics in Australia. And people can say what you want about, it's not a political statement, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
Show me where you'll get better live coverage on TV, free to air or cable, on Australian news, and don't tell me the ABC, because it's not the same. ABC 24 doesn't do what Sky does. It's a different beast. So I'll typically start with that, and then when I get to the office, I will have Sky on my TV in the office.
Yep.
All day, just in the background, unless I really need to focus. And in the evening, I'll just watch the news and recap and then turn the telly off. So typically my professional life involved a high level of consumption, but even I found when Corona hit, I tell you it was really difficult. I was still at that stage hosting my Sunday night show on Sky, which is now on hiatus.
Yep.
So I found the stress incredibly high, because I was, particularly in those first few weeks, the Prime Minister was making these announcements on the Sunday night, and they were typically not good news. So I was, and the show that I was hosting is live, unscripted, 1 hour of coverage of the breaking news of the night. So not a lot you can physically do to prepare other than consume a buttload of news.
So just have a background knowledge of everything.
Yeah, well, you have to be across everything, all the time, which is stressful.
Yeah.
But so I found myself in this situation where, okay, I need to watch this, but the person of me who's an employer and runs a business, also, I didn't want to watch it. I had to watch it, but it was incredibly stressful, because I'm thinking, what does this mean for my business? What does this mean for my staff? What does this mean for my team? And then I had to switch my brain into another mode, get on air and analytically unpack it for an hour.
Yes.
So I guess over that 3-week period, learned to drip feed myself what I needed to know. So I actually just read the headlines on my phone in the morning. So I'd skim the papers, the Australian Financial Review, the Australian, the West, the Daily Telly, the Herald Sun, see what the headlines were, go to work, do my job, dip in and out, but I just had to put a bit of a, I had to just self-isolate for a period of time against the constant news coverage. I think it's an interesting space, because in this day and age, and I know this is one of the things we talked about before we came on air, is that who do I trust concept.
Yeah.
And this environment has really pressure tested that question. And we've seen, as you alluded to, a massive spike in people coming back to traditional news, coming back to telly. Ratings are through the roof. Consumption of newspapers is through the roof. And I think that's a great thing, because what we've seen in the last 10 years is anyone can call themselves a journalist. Anyone can bang up a blog and call themselves a journalist. But there's the one thing that they don't have, well, there's many things they don't have, but the key thing these people don't have, or these organisations don't have, is an editorial structure of accountability.
Yes.
And are facts tested? And who are they accountable for? I can tell you, you might not want to hear this, because I think it's a very trendy thing to attack journalists and attack the news. And for the record, I'm not a full-time journalist anymore. I run a business. I have done for 17 years. I write one column once a fortnight for the West, intermittently for the other papers, and I'm on Sky maybe once or twice a week as a contributor. So I say this not as a working journalist in a newsroom, but it's so trendy to bag out the news. But you know what? It's lazy.
Yeah.
It's lazy, because if you don't want to inform yourself, if you don't want to inform yourself, in my view, this might sound harsh, but you can love me at a distance. If you don't want to inform yourself, you have no right to bag out the mainstream media. If you're going to take your news and your information source from some random Facebook group of your mates who are all telling each other the same thing you want to hear, or some unnamed Facebook or Twitter or social media source of dubious origin that cannot tell you who the editor is at the end of the day that you can complain to or report, then I'm sorry, lift your game a little bit. We're all responsible for the information we consume.
So that accountability structure is really important.
It's so important.
Yeah.
So if we're going to go there in this conversation, one of the comments, most people would have heard of a journalist called Peter Grester, who was imprisoned in Turkey for being a journalist, or maybe it was Egypt, one of the two. Anyway, his comment around you might have access to a bunch of confidential documents, dumping them on the internet a la WikiLeaks doesn't make you a journalist.
Yeah.
That's not journalism. A journalist goes through those documents, understands what they mean, understands whether they're true or not, understands the implications of releasing that information, vets them, pressure checks them, is responsible to an editor, to a structure, an editorial structure that holds them accountable. Dumping information on the internet does not make you a journalist.